What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 374 of AskGSM here today for January 27, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Royal Rumble weekend is upon us. Very excited for that, of course. And we're going to answer all your questions here today from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. We're going to get started here with a pretty lengthy question from Brandon A., but a very good question. So he says this, from YouTube, by the way. What's up, GSM? So my big question this week revolves around an AEW New Japan partnership. I would love to see New Japan talent on Dynamite. However, there is one major problem I have heard not one person address. Most of the top AEW talent has already worked or even feuded with the top-end New Japan Pro Wrestling talent. The top talent in New Japan consists of Tanahashi, Okada, Naito, Ibushi, and to a lesser degree, Jay White. The upper mid-card includes guys like Minoru Suzuki, Evil, Sonata, Kenta, Ishii, Hiroko Goto, Shingo Takagi, and Will Ospreay. Besides MJF and Pac, all of the top AEW guys have pretty much feuded with these people, some of them extensively. Not only that, most of the heel and babyface dynamics are exactly the same because New Japan doesn't turn people often. They have basically one or two major turns every year. For example, last year the major turns were Evil and Will Ospreay, Jericho, Adam Page, Kenny Omega, Cody, the Young Bucks, Jon Moxley, and Lance Archer have all had big runs in New Japan and faced most of the aforementioned names. I think Will Ospreay, MJF, Kenta, Shingo Takagi, and Pac are the only people from both companies who have a big list of fresh matches and feuds that can step up. I think the bigger New Japan names are going to have to face some guys in the AEW mid-card like Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, Brian Cage, Scorpio Sky, etc. in order to do something different. Maybe Roppongi 3K, Dangerous Tekkers, and the Guerrillas of Destiny could make some noise in the tag team division, but this could end up ultimately resembling the 2001 Invasion angle more than what people would want a fantasy book in their heads. Even with somebody new like MJF, it's not like it excites me to see him wrestle any of these people. His star power is on the mic, and that doesn't really work with a roster of guys who don't speak English well. To go back at him, he says. Maybe put him against Jay White, but they're both heels, and who knows if Jay White will even be around. I know you don't watch a lot of New Japan, but what are your thoughts? Do you still see the top stars being able to benefit, or do you see the mid-carders as the ones who will have to carry the day? That's a great question. And you're right, not a lot of people are talking about that. I know I've thought about that before. I have heard people mention that. It's not as big of a focus as it should be, though, because you are completely correct. Now, I think an AEW New Japan partnership should still happen. I think it will still happen at some point, probably by the end of 2021, if not, earlier than that, later, around that time, I'm guessing. I feel like it's inevitable. That being said, there is no need to do an invasion. I think what would be perfect would be to exchange talent here and there. We've had this working relationship now between Impact and AEW for about 2 months, since early December. Kenny Omega has appeared over in Impact. Private Party and Matt Hardy have since gone over there. And the Good Brothers have since come over to AEW. That's it. That's the entire extent of it. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves in thinking, oh, the women can come on over, or the tag teams can come on over. Maybe at some point, but slowly but surely, I feel like we'll see more talent integrated into the weekly product. It doesn't need to be a weekly thing. Impact has people they can focus on that aren't AEW people, and vice versa. Not everyone from Impact has to be on AEW and vice versa. I think less is more, and the same can be said for a New Japan partnership. You are exactly right. In terms of from a roster standpoint, neither roster, I think, really needs the other. New Japan is not hurting for star power. AEW, I don't think, is hurting for star power. There's a lot of people, that I wish were featured more in AEW. I think AEW is more of a current babyface problem than they do like a future. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. But like, I feel like their biggest problem is that they don't have anyone to build off of right now. They have Kenny, they have Cody, they have, Hangman to a certain extent, although he's more of the future than he's the present, in my opinion. Jungle Boy, Darby, people like that, I feel it could be the future, not so much the right now. But at any rate, with what you're proposing with the New Japan AEW partnership, it would make for some really, really good matches. Not every match has to be a fresh match that we've never seen before. Seeing Kenny Omega and Okada again would be fucking awesome. Kenny and Ibushi we have seen one-on-one before, not in a long time. They never really wrapped up that story from 2-3 years ago. They reunited as partners. I remember they did Omega, Cody, and Ibushi in a 3-way for the IWGP Heavyweight title that Omega won. But I don't think we ever got did we get Omega and Ibushi one-on-one? Maybe we did during the G1 and I just don't remember. They probably did. Actually, you know what? They did do it during the G1. But I don't think that story ever really had a blow-off beyond that 3-way. I think having Omega go after the IWGP Championship would be fucking awesome. That doesn't mean that you need to bring over Goto and Takagi and Sonata and Kenta. Like, maybe a few people here and there. Moxley going back and forth makes sense because he is the current reigning IWGP Heavyweight US Champion. People like that make sense. MJF would have nothing to do with any of this. You're completely right. I have no desire to see MJF versus Okada. I'm sure they could have a great match. That's just not a feud that stands out to me as being overly great. Or Tanahashi versus MJF. Maybe it would be. I don't know. But like you said, MJF really works well with people who can talk. The Cody Rhodes feud was great. Not so much the match, which was all right, but not great. The feud was great because both guys can go on the mic. The Jon Moxley feud was great because both guys can go on the mic. He's thriving right now alongside Jericho because both guys can go on the mic. Not that the New Japan people can't talk, but like you said, they can't speak English very well. So what's the real appeal there of an MJF feud? I feel like he would have nothing to do with any of that. But like I said, I feel like a few people here and there, as you mentioned, Cody, Omega, the Bucks, all those people have been over to New Japan before. But being able to see them go back to New Japan for a one-off match here and there, Jericho, same thing. Will Ospreay over in AEW, Kenta and Ibushi are really, and Okada specifically, but it doesn't have to be a regular thing. It can be for like a super show or a one-off New Japan versus AEW super show or whatever. An occasional thing. It doesn't have to be an all-out 2001 invasion. The issue with the 01 invasion was they devoured an entire company's worth of roster. They brought in the entire WCW roster without the big names, and it was a bunch of just losers fighting the top stars of WWE. They tried to make the most of it. It sucked. It just wasn't really well done. This wouldn't be that. They wouldn't be unless they bought out New Japan. They would not be devouring and consuming an entire roster of New Japan talent. That would be a problem. AEW doesn't really need the star power. They just kind of need to make the most of who they have right now. Scorpio Sky ain't doing diddly shit right now. They could be doing a lot more with him. I feel like Lance Archer could have a bigger role on the show. They're doing stuff with Pac finally, now that he's back. So yeah, I know people like Cody and Omega, the entire Bullet Club, have had extensive reigns over New Japan, but you can do rematches. And we may not be seeing it now, but some of the newer people, having Jeff Cobb back in the mix, for example, in AEW, to mix it up with some people over there, I feel like would be fucking awesome. So I still think it's a good idea, as long as they don't go overboard with it. Same thing with the NWA. They're not going to devour the entire NWA roster, or the entire Impact roster. That would just be nonsensical, because Impact already has a pretty good roster. They could benefit from a few people here and there in their tag team division, in their heavyweight division, like Omega and the Good Brothers and Private Party. I mean, Good Brothers are already there, but I meant to say Private Party. And vice versa. But to bring over the entire Impact Knockouts division would just be ridiculous, because they already have a lot of women they're not doing anything with currently, and vice versa. So I don't feel like that would be the case. I still think it would be a good idea, but you have to do it in moderation. I completely agree. Because if they go overboard with it and they bring over everyone from New Japan, or everyone that you mentioned, it's not going to feel as special, and then people that are already on the roster, people like Scorpio Sky, even without that AEW alliance, or I'm sorry, that, AEW New Japan partnership, is already being lost in the shuffle. He already is being overshadowed. So it's got to be done limitedly. That's not even a word, but like with moderation, as I said earlier. I feel like that's the only way that something like that would work. And it's going to be exciting no matter what. At noob_n_co1991 from Twitter, who's going to be in the number one contenders women's tournament as evident of the U.S. and Japan flag? So, yeah, AEW announced like a number one contenders eliminator tournament for the AEW World Women's Championship or whatever, with the winner earning a future title shot. I mean, so, yeah, like you said, the flags they were U.S. and Japan. It would be nice if they extended beyond that and involved some people that weren't just from the United States or Japan. But it sounds like it's going to be people like Penelope Ford, Britt Baker, and then for the Japanese people, probably a lot of the Joshis that we're not currently seeing. So Shida wouldn't be in it because she's the current women's champion, but I would assume they would bring back Riho for that. Yuka Sakazaki, I forgot what her name was. But a lot of the women that were there initially, Emi Sakura, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I really don't care about a lot of those women. I know Riho was the women's champion for a while. They just gave me no reason to care about any of those women. Shida has at least had some storylines, character development, breakout matches. I didn't see jack shit of that from any of the women I just mentioned. So they can put those women in the tournament. I would just really hope they don't win. They can do Riho and Shida, I guess. Would that be a rematch from All Out a few years ago? I think Riho beat Shida at that All Out pay-per-view in 2019 to earn a shot at the women's title in the first episode of Dynamite, though I could be wrong. Either way, I feel like it's got to be Britt Baker winning and getting that next title shot. I know she's currently feuding with Thunder Rosa. You could put Thunder Rosa in there too. I don't know if she would count because she's doesn't she represent Mexico? I'm not sure if she would count or not. I'm not sure if she would fall in the American category. I thought so, but I don't know. I don't want to speak out of line here, but I think Britt Baker's got to win. You can have Thunder Rosa maybe beat Britt Baker, but Britt Baker has got to win and not only become the next number one contender, but be the one to take that belt off of Hikaru Shida. That's the feud they got to do. That's the real money match right there. Not that it would be better than Thunder Rosa and Shida in the ring, but Britt Baker is the biggest female star that they have, the biggest female face on that company, who's a heel. But you get what I'm saying. So that's what it's ultimately got to be leading to, in my opinion. Who will be next in line to challenge Kaylee Ray for the NXT UK Women's title? I don't know. Maybe, what's her name? Not Taya Valkyrie. Is it just Valkyrie? It's something like that. Or, Aoff or something. I forgot what her name was. But she looks like Paige a little bit. I don't know. They're clearly building to something big. Because Kaylee Ray, after beating Ginny last week, she said in an exclusive video on .com on the YouTube channel, on the WWE YouTube channel, that she was going to be scouring the world for talent, or she's got to go beyond NXT UK for her next opponent. Something along those lines. So, which tells me that she might handpick her next opponent for someone who's outside of the NXT UK women's division. She's already beaten that entire women's division. I do not want to see Kaylee Ray versus Piper Niven fucking again. I've seen that a million times. I have no interest in seeing that. She just beat Ginny. She's beaten Isla Dawn before, Xia Brookside, who I like, but I'm pretty sure she's already beaten her. They got to move. She beat Toni Storm a bunch before Toni moved on to NXT. So I don't know. It's probably going to be someone outside of the division. But if it's someone inside the division, that Valkyrie girl would probably make the most sense, because I don't think she definitely has not gotten a shot at that championship yet. Do you think Alexa Bliss can change the personality of the women's division, and will Asuka change after her two matches with Alexa on Raw? Not exactly sure what you mean by the first part of that question, but as far as Asuka is concerned, will she? Probably not. Would I like to see her change? Definitely. I mean, I would think all this stuff with Alexa and anyone who comes in contact with The Fiend has changed, for the most part. Anyone who comes in contact with Alexa Bliss, this version of Alexa Bliss, I think should also change. We haven't seen Nikki Cross in months on Raw, but she's kind of been developing a losing streak, more of an aggressive streak. I'm not sure if that would count. But with Asuka, I would love to see her don the old school face paint. The green mist face paint, I think, is just stupid. The whole Asuka character right now, I just find incredibly dumb. Not that she's dumb, but like the portrayal of the character where she's way too goofy. She's been that way for a while now. People are pointing it out now. She's been that way since the beginning of the pandemic. I know people were saying she was the star of the show on Raw in 2020, but, her matches are great, but like the whole just yelling in Japanese thing is just, it does not, anyone yelling, it doesn't matter what language it's in, it's just completely unnecessary. So I'm not a fan of the Asuka character. If these interactions with Alexa lead to that, I am all for it, because currently right now as a character, I just could not give two shits about her. She just comes across like a complete goof. At Colin_McAndrew from Twitter, Will John Cena return to the Royal Rumble for WrestleMania season? If so, who should he face? Yeah, I've been thinking recently, who would be the big surprise pick this year in the Rumble? I know we had Edge last year. We've had a number of big returns over the years. I'm not really sure who that would be this year outside of someone from NXT. And John Cena makes the most sense. We haven't seen him since WrestleMania last year. It's been long enough where if he came back, it would be a big deal. And people would be very excited to see him. So, I mean, obviously there's no fans there outside of the video screens and whatever. But no, I think Cena makes sense. You can have Cena in the match. Doesn't need to win. Shouldn't win. Definitely not. And then whoever eliminates him, a lot like Brock last year, it sets up his next WrestleMania match. Who should he face at WrestleMania this year? That's the question. I feel like, I've seen people bring up Drew and Cena. I like that idea a lot, except for the fact they're already building up Drew and Sheamus. If they weren't going to do that at the Rumble, at this point, they got to save it for WrestleMania. I don't see them saving that until... I mean, they've done it so... They've had such a heavy focus on that feud and on that story. To waste it on a B pay-per-view before then or after WrestleMania, wait for the turn after Mania, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So they got to do Sheamus and Drew at WrestleMania, in my opinion. I've always wanted to see Cena and Joe. I feel like they missed the boat on that a few years ago. Joe is always hurt. Cena's never around anymore. They really should have done that feud in like 2017. They didn't. They missed their chance. Whatever. I'm trying to think. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm not really sure who else he could face from either brand. Orton, obviously, no. Roman is a possibility. No thanks. I know, it would be interesting just because with Roman as the heel now compared to the last time they faced off, Roman would obviously win, as he should, but I feel like there are better options for Roman at WrestleMania than John fucking Cena. I think John Cena should be a part of WrestleMania this year. He hasn't had a real marquee normal match of the show in like 4 or 5 years. Because he had the cinematic match last year, didn't wrestle the year before that. The Taker match was a last-minute add-on. He was in a friggin' mixed tag team match the year before that. So it's been a long time. Didn't wrestle at the 32 event. So it would be cool if he wrestled this year. And I hope he will. I think he will. I'm just not sure who he faces. There's probably people I'm not thinking of. Riddle, I don't know. Keith Lee, Goldberg maybe. Goldberg isn't a bad idea. I'm not sure who would win. I'll say Goldberg. Goldberg, if they're going to have Goldberg on the show, which I assume they probably will, Goldberg would probably have to win, which is fine. It doesn't really matter either way, I guess. They're both, established, whatever. I'll go with Goldberg. I don't really know how they set that up, but I'll go with Goldberg because I'm not really sure who else he faces that would make sense that I would want to see. Not that I'm clamoring for a Goldberg Cena match, but we've already seen Cena in The Fiend. We saw that last year, albeit not in a normal match, but been there, done that. Styles would be, he's free, but maybe. I mean, they've always had great matches, so maybe AJ Styles. There's just not one person that makes sense to me. I don't know. I know I've always pitched like Cena and Velveteen Dream, but Dream is just such a non-factor at this point, and he has his own issues to attend to that I just don't think that's a good idea. Lars, if he was actually on the show, I know they were trying to do that a few years ago, and then it fell through. Lars has not been on SmackDown in months. Black has not been on the show in months. Kevin Owens, we've been there before. Daniel Bryan as a babyface, no. Rollins, we've been there before. I feel like Cena's really feuded with every top name in the company for the most part. Anyone that matters anyway. So I'll say Goldberg. At Reborn Again from Twitter, John Ritland from the Twitter and YouTube machine. Check out his show Real Honesty with John Ritland on YouTube. His question was, do you think that AEW will be able to grow and maintain a weekly viewership of over 1 million people? Or is the company just simply going to stay at the level it's at with occasional spikes but nothing huge? That's the real question. Will they stay where they're at, or will they grow? I think they can grow, not just because the show is good, but because, I don't know, they haven't declined yet. It's not like they peaked at a certain point and then have been down from... I mean, they had 1,000,004 viewers. They have yet to get past that from their first show a few years ago. But it's not like they're down to 500,000 people a week. They're still consistently doing better than NXT almost every single week. I think they can get to that 1 million mark, definitely. I feel like once NXT is off of Wednesdays, and it's just not helping. I think both shows would be better off on different nights. Keep Dynamite on Wednesdays. Move NXT to Tuesdays or Thursdays. Probably Thursdays, though it might be Tuesdays. And then, I don't know. If NXT is suffering more than Dynamite is, but Dynamite would probably reach that million mark if they were on their own night. I think they would. So yeah, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say I think they will. It's gonna take time. It's a very slow and steady process, but I probably wouldn't say that about a lot of promotions. Like, I don't think most promotion shows ratings have not gone up for any real wrestling show in like 20 years. I'm not saying that Dynamite's going to be doing 1,000,005 people every week in a week or two from now. Hey, but it's better than going down. They have yet to decline, like most wrestling promotions. If they can just stay steady and then Raw comes down to their level, I mean, then they're winning. So they almost don't even have to improve. But I think they will. I think they should. And what is it going to take to get to that point? Again, being on its own night, I think, would be a big help. Just doing a better job. I mean, they announce stuff every single week, which I think is great. That really helps me look forward to the show and determine what show I'm going to watch first. Not blow their load on all the friggin' big shows at once a month. Like, I felt like they really did all the big stuff at the New Year's Smash shows, and now since then, all the shows really have felt mundane. They felt mediocre. They can't do that. Every show has got to feel special to a certain extent. I know you can't have big returns and debuts every week, but, you know, last week's show, the week before, did not feel must-see by any means, so they got to do a better job of that. His next question, and no, 3 hours of weekly wrestling television is hard to do, but how is Raw mostly so catastrophically bad? Especially in the last year, that is. I get that the pandemic forced the company to be creative, but a lot of times they don't seem like they're trying. It's amazing that this is the same company that produces SmackDown and NXT, which aren't absolutely amazing shows, but they are light years ahead of Raw, in my opinion. In my opinion. SmackDown is just an easier watch. NXT is a far easier watch. Raw is just so fucking bad. I don't know. I feel like that's a rhetorical question because they really can't answer how it's gotten so bad. I know it has its like peaks and valleys, but I feel like we're at a valley more so than we are at a peak. It's bad more often than it's good. There are stretches of time where Raw is better and they're producing good television, but that is very, very rare. 1 or 2 months out of 1 year out of 12 months is not fucking good. That's not a good track record. They got to do a better job of producing better shows, focusing on newer people, not doing the same matches every week, giving people more of a reason to tune in. Nothing really exciting happens on Raw from week to week that would make me want to tune in every single week. Just a lot of bad ideas, feuds I don't care about, not many great matches, just meaningless, pointless filler TV time. And with that formula, at some point, you're going to erode your audience away. And they've been doing this for years now, but before they had that audience to fall back on. They don't have that anymore. And without fans in the arena, it makes people even less interested to want to watch the shows. AEW doesn't have a big audience at their shows, but I still want to watch their shows because it feels like they produce, not every week like I just got done saying, but some bigger stuff that makes me want to tune in. Raw, we have not had that. Like, what was the last real big memorable moment that happened on Raw? McIntyre winning back the WWE title, maybe. But other than that, I can't think of a single fucking thing. Because I feel like whatever momentum they have, they quickly squander it. So, it's amazing how bad Raw is. It's amazing how bad Raw is. It really, really is amazing to me. One more question from John. Is all this stuff with -1 close to becoming exploitation from the company? Or am I just being a touch too cynical? I know his father passed away, and I'm glad they're doing stuff for the family, but this isn't sitting right with me. I don't think it is. I know he was on Dark last night. I wouldn't have put him on commentary for the second match that he was on. He was on commentary for 2 different matches. One of them was like Ten's match from Dark Order, which was fine. I mean, and people loved it, and it didn't really bother me. By the second match, I don't know if he really, I mean, it was 2 matches, so it's not that big of a deal. If you had him on commentary for the whole show, that might be a problem. Having him out there and attacking Brian Pillman Jr. with a kendo stick, that didn't really bother me. Just because it was the kid's birthday recently. It was his birthday last week. He was at the tapings. It's not like they're bringing him in every week. If they brought him in every week, he was a regular on the show, and let's say they made him like the GM or something, I feel like that would be overkill. But I feel like what they're doing for him now, hey, clearly they're enjoying it. I feel like they want to, but a big part of it too is that he wants to do it. The kid probably loves being a part of this shit. And they're doing him a favor, and they're helping him live out a dream. So it's not like they're interviewing, the widow, Brody Lee's wife every week and featuring her in a story. If they did it as part of a storyline or something, I feel like that would be exploitation. The kid coming out on Dark, Dynamite was fine, and I was okay with that. Dark is fine too, to a lesser extent. Dark is no one, it's not that important of a show. And he was already there at the taping, so that didn't really bother me. If he's there every week, maybe, but right now I don't really have much of a problem with it. If you do, then that's fine, but personally, I don't really, it doesn't really bother me. At E13A, and we got to run through the next couple questions here, I apologize, but have you heard about Undertaker appearing on the Joe Rogan podcast about criticizing WWE for being too soft and also extending the criticism to the roster for being too obsessed with video games and looking pretty and not being real men anymore? Yeah, that blew up social media a couple days ago. I heard all about it. I understand where Taker's coming from. It was just a different time, but I feel like and other people have said this, but if they had the same shit now that they did then, it would probably be the exact same thing. Honestly, like if we had cell phones back then when Taker came up in the business, it would probably be a very similar locker room. I don't think just because these people don't play video games that they're not tough. And a lot of these people play video games and do stuff like that to cope with whatever. If they were playing video games, but they were like complacent and they wanted to sit out on the, don't put me on the show tonight, I'm back here doing whatever, that would be a problem. And I feel like that was the case years ago. Nowadays, I don't think not so much. I don't work there. I'm not a wrestler. I don't know. I feel like I'm more in the Xavier Woods camp, though I get where Taker is coming from. I feel like people just went off on his comments. And it's the guy's opinion. If that's his preference, then who fucking cares? He is insulting the current roster, which I don't think was necessary. The whole real men thing I don't really agree with. But again, I'm not a wrestler, so I can't really say. But the other stuff that he said about, like, I don't know, they were more tough guys, maybe that is true, but that's his own personal observation. So people were really just going off on the guy. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. Woods responding and saying what he said was completely justified. I get it. I'd rather have the roster safer and healthier now than they were 30 years ago when Taker came up and people were doing drugs all the fucking time. I'd rather have that be the case. But I feel like both guys are right in their own way. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. At Uagu91, about the controversial DX versus Brothers of Destruction match. One, do you consider it sad that Undertaker and Kane's final time teaming up was a terrible match? And two, do you consider DX victory a horrific one? I think that's how you pronounce that word. I had never heard that word before. Especially for Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement for it. Yeah, it sucks. The final Brothers of Destruction match was so bad. I think the last time they teamed up, and I could be wrong, before that was the Survivor Series 2015 match against the Wyatt family, which, listen, it was far from an instant classic, but it was definitely more memorable. Maybe not even more memorable, it was just, the other one was more memorable for the wrong reasons. It was a better match than whatever the fuck we got at Crown Jewel. That was cool. It was on the 25th of Taker's anniversary. It was awesome. The Crown Jewel match sucked. And the whole, DX victory, does it even really matter for Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement? No. He should have stayed retired. There was no reason to come back for another match. And if he did want to come back for another match, it should have been against a guy like AJ Styles. Or at least if it's going to be a tag team match, against a team that can frickin' go. I mean, Brothers of Destruction, I understood what they were going for with the marquee names involved in it, but it fucking sucked. It was terrible. Considering who was in there and the fact that Shawn was retired for almost 10 years and he still went in there and kicked ass, that's just really, really sad. At the Wrestler Guy from Twitter, Sal's question, his first question was, what terrifies you more, the chance of Goldberg winning the WWE Championship or the chance of Brock Lesnar winning the Royal Rumble? Definitely the Goldberg winning the title one, just because Goldberg has already unnecessarily become a two-time world champion in recent years. The first run, fine. The second one was a complete waste of time. A third one would just be, come on, are you fucking kidding me? I was feeling that way last year. A third time, we don't need a constant streak, like McIntyre said, of Goldberg coming back and winning a title. We do not need titles on part-timers. How many times do I have to say that? We don't need it. Brock winning the Rumble I don't like that idea at all, but at least if you do that, you have options. He can go after Roman again, a match I don't really want to see, but there's the history there. Roman's a heel now. Paul Heyman's involved. That could be very interesting. Or on Raw, he could face off with Drew in a rematch from last year and take back the title that he lost in Mania a year ago. You got options there. That at least could be somewhat interesting, and if we get into the Drew-Brock match out of it, again, I don't really want to see that, but It would be better than Goldberg going into WrestleMania as the world champion. No fucking thanks. His second question: if WWE makes the correct decision and has Daniel Bryan win the Rumble, do you think he should come out at number 1, since it has now been 17 years since the last time that has occurred? It doesn't. He doesn't have to come out at number 1, though it would. You would have to explain it. Maybe Sonya puts him at number 1 this Friday on SmackDown. It's not a bad idea. I like that a lot. He's come out at number 1 before, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has. Multiple times, I think. But, yeah, no, I would be fine with that. He doesn't have to come out at number 1. And we've seen that story before where someone comes out at, 1 or 2 and they win the whole thing. We've seen that a few times before. So they never do it again, I'm content. But if they did it with Bryan, I think it would make for a great story. So, I wouldn't mind seeing that. What is your favorite Royal Rumble and why? This answer has changed a lot in the last number of years. When I first started doing the show, my answer was probably the 2010 one. That was my first pay-per-view I ever ordered. It was a fucking great Rumble match. Edge came back and won the whole thing. Loved it. That was 11 years ago, which is nuts. That used to be my favorite. I always used to like the 2011 one. Not so much anymore, but I did like that Rumble early on. The 2016 one in recent years, the 2018 one, and the 2021 were all fucking great. I would probably say the 2018 one. I loved last year's. Last year's might be my new favorite. I'm going to watch them all back to back. I'm going to watch those 2 back to back, 2018 and 2020. 2016's close. And I love the 08 one. I love the 92 one. I think those are all great. 05 is good too. I don't know, though. I was at the 2018 one, so I am tempted to say the 2018 one. Probably 2018, though the 2021 was great too. So I'm going to go with 2018 because I was there. Though 2020 is very, very close because I loved last year's Men's Rumble. Adam FBEENEEOY, F Beanie Boy or something like that. Their Twitter account, or that's what their handle is. Their first question was, do you see Taya Valkyrie joining John Morrison in WWE? I do. If it's between there and AEW could use more women's star power. But her husband's in WWE. Not to say that she has to go there. Like, Britt Baker went to AEW, and Adam Cole works for NXT. It's not that big of a deal. I don't know. NXT, we know that their women's division is consistently strong. Hey, she could show up as a women's surprise entrant on Sunday. I don't see anyone talking about that. Because she's free of a contract right now, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure she's done with Impact. So she could conceivably enter in the Women's Rumble, then go to NXT. Either way, I think she could definitely be in WWE with John Morrison, main roster, NXT. She is that good. I'm a fan of her. She feels like a star. So, yeah, I'm going to say WWE, I think, is the better fit for her. Do you see Daniel Bryan winning the Royal Rumble this Sunday? I do. I'm not as confident in that pick as I was a week or two ago, a month ago. Because of that report that came out, the WWE from WrestleVotes, that they might be considering doing something that everyone is bound to hate, just a really bad idea. So I don't know what that would entail. I'm very scared. I was very scared after reading that, but I'm going to stick with Bryan. If it's not Bryan, I can see Lesnar winning. Keith Lee is another strong possibility. That's really about it. Other dark horses would be like a Cesaro or a Nakamura or a Bobby Lashley or a Sheamus. I could see those guys being like second tier. My top 3 choices are Brock, Bryan, and who was the other guy? Keith Lee. Keith Lee only if Goldberg won the championship. But I'm going to stick with Bryan. I'm scared because I think Brock might come back and win the whole thing, which I fucking hate. But I think there's a pretty good chance that Bryan's going to win on Sunday. And Edge is a possibility too. Edge, I wouldn't hate it. It's a possibility. Now that we know he's back, we forget about Edge. But I'm sticking with Bryan. Final 2 questions from @Scarlet1. One best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars from last week. The best, I thought both shows were fine. I thought NXT was just better than Dynamite. Dynamite was a very ho-hum show, just not a lot that stuck out to me as being exciting. But the best from both shows, I enjoyed the fight pit between Ciampa and Thatcher. I thought that was very good. Lucha House Party versus Imperium was fun. The women's tag team match was good. Dark Order and Adam Page versus Chaos Project and TH2. I love the Page and Dark Order dynamic. I really enjoy that, so I thought that was a fun opening match. And the Private Party heel turn. The match itself was good. Top Flight had a few missed botches there, just not make for the smoothest encounter, let's say it that way. But I thought the Private Party heel turn gets a big thumbs up from me. The worst from both shows, really not much from NXT aside from, Bronson Reed and Tyler Russ was good. It was a fine match. Just felt pointless, and both guys need wins right now. So to pit them against each other, I thought was a weird call. And we'll see where they're going with the whole Rust and Bivens thing. I like both guys. I like Reed. I like Bivens. I like Rust. I like them all. I just wish they would all win more and be involved in a meaningful program. From Dynamite, again, like I said, the show just wasn't that good overall anyway by usual Dynamite standards. But Cody Rhodes and Peter Avalon, I could not give two fucks about that. I really can't. Really didn't. And then the Inner Circle triple threat tag team main event. I mean, who cares who the official tag team of the Inner Circle is? That should not have been the main event. Who gives a shit? Final question. Did you hear about the WWE Network merging with Peacock as part of a deal with NBC Universal? Of course I heard about it. I don't live under a rock. But, yeah, no, I did hear about it. I wasn't sure what to think at first because I'm like, oh, I wish the WWE would just stay its own thing. The WWE Network, that is, and be independent. But this actually might be a big plus. I feel like you get more eyes on the network with people who have Peacock. I think I already own Peacock as an Xfinity customer, so I may not have to pay $10 anymore. And even if I do, it's only $5 compared to $10. So this is a big plus, honestly. I have Hulu with ads. I don't really give a shit about the ads. If I have to pay $5 for it or nothing at all because I already have Peacock, I'm fucking all for this. I don't care about anything else except for that. As long as all the content is still on there, it's still organized, it won't be a mess. I like the layout of the WWE Network for the most part, and it's also easily accessible. Then it's a win. It's a big, big win. Gets more eyes on the product. I'm not sure, if people using Peacock are going to go check out the WWE pay-per-views, but the option is there as opposed to WWE being its own service. So I think it's a big plus. Been making a lot of money from it because what else is new? But we'll see where they go with it. We'll see what they do with it. But initially, my thoughts on it are positive. I wasn't sure what to think at first, but I'm liking the move, and it could turn out to be a really good idea. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 374 here today of #AskGSM for January 27th, 2021. Got to get going. I apologize for the rushed episode, but you can like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for daily content. Be sure to send in your question by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the post itself or the wall itself, and drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have a great one, guys. Enjoy the Royal Rumble this weekend. We'll be back next Wednesday with all the Royal Rumble recap. Until then, I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Have an awesome one, and I'll catch your ass down the road.